Well, you've all heard that the IMF has its first ever female president, not selected by the southern countries of the world who are most impacted by IMF loans, but still, she's a woman. And in all credit to her, the only piece of credit I can give her, Christine Lagarde, is that she has already promised to try to promote gender equality and to end sexual harassment in the IMF after the Dominique Strauss-Kahn fiasco of his attempting to rape a woman in a New York City hotel room. You've all heard about that. So, I brought a letter that you each have in front of you, and if anybody doesn't, I have extra copies here, which I'll give you imminently. And I seek your signatories on this letter, which I drafted. Right now it has only one signatory, Gender Action, my organization. So I'd like to just tell you a little bit about this letter. As I said, the only thing that we can commend Christine Lagarde for so far is her promise to promote gender equality and end sexual harassment. So you'll be surprised to hear that the main thrust of this letter is really about the harmful impacts that the IMF has had for decades and continues to have to this day on the lives of vulnerable women and girls around the world. The reforms that we're calling Christine Lagarde to effect include, first of all, it's high time that the IMF stop making loans, mostly illegitimate. Illegitimate because they're made often to dictators in southern countries or other presidents of countries who never repay these loans themselves. They stash away the money in Swiss bank accounts, and then the poor people are left behind to pay. And there's no money left in the country to spend on health, education, water, sanitation, and all those basic needs. So we have to get the IMF, under Christine Lagarde's watch, to stop making loans to the poorest countries of the world that has devastated these countries in Africa, Asia, and elsewhere. Secondly, the IMF has to end the harmful loan conditions it attaches to its loans, which it calls conditionalities. The conditionalities never tell a country you cannot spend on health and education, but they always have that effect. They tell a country you must slash your public sector spending. So where do countries cut? You know exactly where. Health and education. They don't cut their military budgets. You know this so well from what's going on in the US now. This is true in countries throughout the world, especially the world's poorest countries. So we're calling on Christine Lagarde also to end those horrible policy conditions that the IMF attaches to its loans to poor countries. Of course, we're calling for no more loans, only grants. So let's say no more conditions to even grants. So those are the two main calls of this letter. I'd like to just read to you the final paragraph, which has some irony in it. I put some irony in it. And that is, although the fund, the IMF, failed to predict the world's largest financial crisis in almost 80 years, the G20, that's the world's most powerful countries, the group of 20, awarded the IMF with a triple budget, let me tell you, of $1 trillion, no less, so that the fund could rescue countries impacted by the crisis. And then I close by saying, as its managing director, Christine Lagarde, you bear a great responsibility to ensure these precious public resources, they're from your taxpayer pockets, because the US gave the largest chunk of that money to the IMF, to ensure that these precious public resources rectify macroeconomic imbalances, that's what the IMF does, in a humane way that improves men's and women's well-being. Please sign on. I'm going to circulate a sign-on sheet.